Hey guys, it's Ann Yorks from the Flower Box, and I have one final holiday cookie tutorial for you for 2022, and I think I saved the best for last. Today I'm going to show you how to make all these adorable cookies from the Dear Santa Cookie Decorating Kit. We have cookies, milk, presents, Santa. It's gonna be so much fun. Let's cookie it up. The first cookies I'm going to show you how to make are the cookies. So let's take a look at this cookie. This cookie cutter is so much fun because it is shaped that it looks like it already has a bite out of it. So I just imagine Santa has taken a bite out of this cookie and he's ready to gobble the rest up. Now I'm using royal icing to decorate these cookies. If you're looking for more information on how to make piping and flooding consistencies, definitely check out that Cookies 101 blog post. But I'm outlining the cookie with tip number 2, flooding it in. And if you see any little air bubbles in your icing, definitely zoom in and pop those bubbles using a boo-boo stick or a scribe. Now I like to allow that base icing to dry for about an hour in front of the fan before adding the details. That just gives me a nice solid base to add those details, and it also prevents color bleeding from the piped details to the base. So I'm adding some wavy lines for icing. I'm adding some sprinkles using the forest green, the Christmas red, and the white icing bags. And then I'm just adding some nonpareils using my piping bags as well. Now, typically I like to use a tip number 2 for outlines and details. So that's what I'm using to create those sprinkles. That is such a fun and cute and easy cookie to make. Now let's take a look at this little mini gingerbread. Mini cookies are the most fun because they are bite-sized, and so they are lots of fun to decorate. You can even use a 20-second icing to decorate them if you're only doing mini cookies, but I already have the piping and flooding icing consistencies prepped in my bags for all of these cookies. So I am outlining the cookie first using piping icing and flooding in using that thinner flood icing. I let that cookie dry in front of the fan, and then I'm ready to add the details. I'm keeping these super simple since it's a mini cookie. So just eyes, a smile, nose, a couple of buttons, and then I'm going to add some white wavy lines for those icing on the head and arms and legs. Now this color palette is so much fun. I love the classic red and green, but using a forest green, and also mixing in some pink and sky blue as well. If you're looking for details on this color palette, definitely check out the Dear Santa blog post on flowerbox.com. It's on the kit page where you can find the kit for these cookies. Now I love to get creative with my cookie cutters. This is a snow globe cookie cutter, but we're going to turn it into a plate with a little napkin and a cookie on the side. So we're turning this cookie to the side. I do need a little help piping that circle, so I'm going to use the cookie cutter to finish the curve. So as I'm piping around that circle, I have a little bit of a guideline, and then I'm going to outline that area on the left. I'm calling that a napkin, so I think that's fine, and there will be a little mini gingerbread on top of that to just fill in that space. Now let's flood in this plate nice and generously. We are going to be stenciling using the Cookies for Santa stencil, and so it does matter that that icing area dries nice and flat. It makes stenciling so much easier. So be generous with your icing so you get a nice full flat dry. Allow that red to dry, flood in the white napkin, allow that to dry, and then you're ready to stencil. I'm using a stencil genie just to hold that stencil into place, and I'm using the forest green piping icing to cover that stencil completely, and I'm always making sure that I have a really good coverage on here. Sometimes it's easy to put the icing on and then scrape the icing back off. So you just want to look and make sure right there, I kind of scraped off the icing on the tree in that stencil. So I'm just making sure that all of those areas are completely covered before I tilt the stencil genie to the side. I don't want to smudge that image, and lift that up to reveal that really adorable Cookies for Santa stenciled pattern. Now I'm going to add the little mini cookie onto the side of the plate. So I have some white royal icing, and I'm just putting it on the right side of that gingerbread, and I'm gluing it into place on the side of that plate. Now to just finish off this design, I'm going to add a piped line around the edge of that Cookies for Santa section of the cookie. That is so cute. Santa is going to love it. That is so cute. Let's take a look at the cookies and milk. This is a fun cookie cutter in the summer. This can be a glass of lemonade with a slice of lemon on the left side. But for this Christmassy Dear Santa cookie collection, we're turning it into a glass of milk with a cookie dunking into the milk on the left side. So I'm outlining the glass using sky blue, outlining the straw and the cookie, and then I'm ready to jump in with my flood icing. I'm using this sky blue icing to represent the clear part of the glass, and notice I'm adding a little line of flood around the edge of the cookie just to show that the glass is there. Then I'm ready to fill in at the top before I go back and add the milk. Time to pour the milk. I have my white flood icing, and I'm just going to fill in the remaining section of that glass completely with that flood icing. And it's wet, the blue is still wet, so it all sort of bumps up together and creates a nice flat surface. Add a little line of that flood icing along the edge to clean up those icing areas in case there's any wonkiness. Now let those sections dry, and then it's time to come back and flood in the straw and also the cookie. I'm using red and white icing in the straw, that flood icing, and it's just gonna flood together and create those stripes. And then I'm using a pink flood icing in that cookie area. The details on this are pretty easy. I'm just adding an accent line across the top of the glass to bring that to the foreground. And I'm going to add some sprinkles and nonpareils to the cookie just to dress that up and give it some fun Christmas colors. Let's take a look at the stacked presents cookie. This turned out to be one of my favorite because I'm using a fun wet on wet technique to create the wrapping paper. So go ahead and outline the boxes first. I'm using sky blue on the bottom box and a pink on the top box. And then I'm using the forest green piping icing to outline the bow. To start the wet on wet design, flood that base present completely using the sky blue. While that icing is still wet, we're going to add some Christmas trees using the green flooding. And this is simply a zigzag pattern. I'm starting small at the top of the tree and widening the zigzag as I go down to create that wider base. You have to move a little bit quickly because you don't want that blue icing to set up. You really want those trees to melt in flat so that they look like wrapping paper. Now this is almost done. I'm just going to add a little brown trunk to each tree, and then I'll also add some itty bitty dots of white flood. Again, always using flood with wet on wet techniques to add a little snowy background with those trees. Before we put this cookie in front of the fan to dry, we're just going to flood in that bow using the forest green icing. Now it's time to flood in that top box. I'm going to flood it in pink, and then we're going to add some red and white peppermint stripes. Start with the red flood icing and just go from corner to corner, adding 2 more stripes on either side. This will help with your spacing, and it'll keep your cookies looking consistent from cookie to cookie. Then fill in between those red stripes using a white stripe of flood icing. Allow all this icing to dry, and then we're ready to add the details of the bow. I'm just adding some little ribbons to the top bow and a center large dot of icing. And I'm going to add ribbons to the bottom in red. So I'm just piping a horizontal and a vertical line, and then I'm adding just a simple little bow in red with some ribbons dangling down. And this is such a cute cookie. I think this is totally a fair deal. We give Santa cookies and he gives us presents. It works for me. Let's take a look at the letter to Santa. I'm using the scroll cookie cutter. This is a nice sized cutter where you can add some of these details where the paper is rolled at the top and the bottom. And then I'm going to just flood in each of these areas, letting them dry to create that dimension between the icing areas and give that illusion that that paper is rolled up. We are stenciling this cookie, so be sure to flood in generously to create that nice flat surface once the cookie is dry. Before we get to the stenciling, let's flood in the rest of those icing areas, and then we'll let those dry and come back and add the words. I'm using the Stencil Genie again. This is optional, but it does really help hold that stencil into place so that you don't have to worry about the stencil shifting and smudging your image. I have black icing, and I'm just going to spread it generously across that stencil, remove any excess, rock the Stencil Genie to the side and lift up, and there you have Dear Santa, I Can Explain. Now, there is a little bit of negative space on the top right of this letter to Santa, so of course, anytime you have a little empty space on a Christmas cookie, you add a little holly and berries. I'm using the forest green piping and flooding to add the holly leaves, and then some piping icing for those red berries. This cookie makes me hungry, and it also makes me laugh. Now I want to show you how to make this Santa. I've made lots of Santas over the years. I really like this new cutter that's featured in this box, and I'm changing up the design just a little bit. I'm adding a wavy fur line to his hat. I'll add the pom-pom, and then when I go to add his face, I kind of add that the way I add most of my Santa faces. I start off with a parentheses for the side of his faces, just 2 curved lines, and then I curve those cheeks over to meet the side of his face. When you break it down like that, you really don't need a template or a projector. You can create these Santas using freehand. Outline the rest of the beard, and you're ready to flood in the face using sienna and the hat using red. Once those icing areas have a chance to dry, go back in and flood all those white areas, the pom-pom, the fur on Santa's hat, and that fun shaggy beard. I love that this Santa is not symmetrical and he's not scalloped or smooth. He's just got a lot of fun little shags to his beard, like he's about to have a fun night of delivering presents. Now, there are so many ways to add a mustache to Santa, and we're using a new mustache shape on this cookie. We're bringing the sections of that mustache down way down low, but I do want to make it look like Santa is smiling, so I bring that tip of that mustache up just a little bit with a curl, just to give Santa a happy mustache. Don't forget to add the nose, and then let that mustache and nose dry just for a quick 15 minutes before adding the details. This Santa is wearing glasses, so I'm adding 2 small rectangles using black icing and tip number 1. And then we'll add the eyes just above, like his glasses are resting on his nose and he's peeking out over his glasses. Now don't forget Santa's big fun eyebrows. Here I'm using piping and flooding because I want those details to stay nice and smooth. Use the sienna for Santa's lip at the bottom, and this cookie is ready to go. I really do wonder what Santa will think when he shows up and sees a cookie of himself. I hope you had so much fun seeing all of these Christmas cookies come together. I had a blast making this set. If you're looking for the cookie decorating kit to make these Dear Santa cookies or more information, definitely check out the blog post and the product page on flowerbox.com, where you can get your own cookie decorating kit and bonus details on how to make these cookies. That's all for today. Until next time, happy decorating.